Hi Arena players, my name is Rune. You might know me under a range of different names. I go by Ecto in the game, but you might have seen me post on the Steam forums as the Devil's Avocado. On Twitch and arenamasters.com I go by Softly Adverse. This video is my attempt at sort of a high-level commentary for Arena. There's a lot of great beginners info. Roder has written excellent Steam guides and Restart has made some videos. But I haven't seen much in terms of high-level strategy talk, so that's what I'm going to try and do here. Arena is a young game, which means that there's really not that much difference between a high-level player and a low-level player yet. So even if you're new to the game, this probably won't be totally over your head. If you're an either master, I expect you'll find that I'm repeating a lot of things you'd sort of thought of yourself, and in that case I hope you'll bear with me. The game I want to analyze in this video is a game between me and Drtinoha, who's a really good either master, sort of towards the top. And I picked this game because I think it's one of the better ones I've played, and because both DRT and I made some instructive mistakes. And there are also some considerations regarding ship choices and lineups that are worth discussing, I think. So let's get into it. The first thing you can see here right off the bat is that we're both using the Ark ship, which is the ship that doesn't have the 3 middle tiles attackable. And I really think that after the nerf to the Sky Bucket and the Sky Bucket skins down to 14 health, this is, I mean, on Dearborn Heights, this is sort of a no-brainer. It makes such a big difference that you not so much that they can't attack you, because melee champions will be able to attack you, just diagonally standing next to your ship, but that you threaten to sort of knock them down whenever they attack your ship, and that also comes into play in this game. And the crucial thing you can see here is that I don't have any champions with knockback on my team, and I quite often play without knockback champions. I like Shockwave, but I think on this map I would have been well advised to exchange Luna in the lineup for Corporal. They both fill the same role as sort of damage dealers, and in this case that was probably a mistake. And we'll end up seeing Tinoha's Corporal really shine in this game. So I go for the Butcher, which can't be a surprise to anyone. He's sort of a classic on this map, and on South Dole especially. And I've sort of seen him go out of favor with some high-level players lately, but I still think he's really good. I mean, in either masters you're not likely to catch anyone on the death tile, but he can still initiate with regular pulls if you're aware of the turn order, and he also has some nice zoning abilities. You really limit what your opponent can do with a well-placed Butcher. It sort of throws a wrench into many of your opponent's strategies. Tinoha mirrors my Butcher play, and I play Aurora quite offensively. It's generally nice to play Aurora sort of aggressively because of her zoning abilities. She makes the opponent quite uncomfortable, and in this case I actually had a different plan as well. It's very common to use Butcher to sort of target the champion that's right before Butcher in the turn order, because this allows you to pull him over, and then your other 2 champs can finish the job, so to speak. But in this case, I'm hoping to sort of pull off a different tactic. I'm planning to run my Aurora forward and attack his Butcher for 2 damage, which will then allow my Butcher to do a pull and attack, killing his Butcher before he gets his turn. And this is a tactic I found works quite well, but it's also difficult to pull off because you have to do 2 damage to the opponent's Butcher while he's on your opponent's side of the board without stranding your Aurora next to a Harlequin or something, and you have to do it while also keeping the pulling lane free. That can be quite difficult. On the bright side, not many people expect you to do this. It's not something most players sort of protect themselves against, at least not deliberately anyway. So he brings out Sharina, a new champion who's I feel she's strong. I actually think she's quite well balanced, and I bring out my Luna here. Luna has been sort of a staple on my team since the patch came out. I might go back to using Corporal and Harlequin again a bit more, but I really think she's become quite strong since they updated her damage to be 3 on every attack. I grabbed the character either with Butcher to prepare his pull, and Drtinoha decides to sort of throw all of my well-laid plans out the window by going forward and just starting a war. I believe the point of this play is that if Aurora double counterattacks, then that'll allow Sharina to double attack as well, and then on Corporal's turn he'll move forward and finish my Aurora off, and that'll sort of result in a big melee where his Corporal and Sharina will probably have the edge over my Luna and Butcher. However, since I only need to do 2 damage with Luna to Butcher and then I can finish him off with my own Butcher, I simply attack once and then move away over to the character either tile. And well, ending your turn on the edge is sort of a general red flag, especially if your opponent is fielding Corporal. But as you can see, he doesn't have the either to knock me off, and his ship doesn't have enough either to play a charging or upper or anything like that. So I decide that it's probably safe at this point. This leaves him without any really good moves for Sharina, so he just collects his ship Ether, and now we can see another advantage to moving Aurora away is that we have considerably better movement options for Luna now. She can go and attack the Butcher if she wants to, but at the moment that's not really necessary, and so I decide to simply go and collect some Ether with her to keep his Corporal zoned and away from my ship. And since his Corporal can't engage Luna nor attack Aurora without getting clobbered, he does the same thing, maintaining the stalemate between Luna and Corporal on the right side. Butcher butchers Butcher, and Dr. Drtinoha fields a new Aurora.
Lady Aurora.
This is a good place to field Aurora because it covers the tile where I would ordinarily like to harass Sharina. Now, at this point, I make a bit of a mistake. I think I messed up the turn orders and expected that I would be able to walk forward and deal 2 damage to Sharina and then Butcher pull and attack for 4 damage after that. But of course, that's not really possible since Sharina gets her move right after Aurora. So instead, this is me just putting my Aurora in a position to die and putting her in a position to die while she has full Ether, no less, which is kind of a shame. Now, I see no real good way to have Luna engage in the skirmish on the left, so instead I have her collect either once again, maintaining the stalemate on the right. At this point, she'll have 5 either on the next turn, and that allows her to initiate really well with her ulti and follow up 3 damage attack. At this point, Drtinoha does something I hadn't really expected. He scorches my Aurora, and this is actually a really good move. Ordinarily you wouldn't do it because his Aurora can kill my Aurora before her next turn, but as you can see in the lower left, I actually have an upper there, which would save her and mean that his Sharina was dead. So scorching here is really a good choice, the safe way to go, and especially sensible considering that Corporal doesn't really have any obvious moves still other than collecting more Ether. At this point I move Butcher forward and pushes Sharina off the ledge, and this is just because full Ether Sharina is just not something you want on the board on the other side. She is able to use her ulti to affect the entire board no matter where she's positioned, and you have to sort of calculate any exchange from there on out, so long as she has the other, with the possibility that she could heal the entire party at any time. That's just, it's difficult to calculate with, and it's very strong. So simply pushing her off here is probably the best choice, especially because Butcher can do so without putting himself in range of any enemies. This is a move you've probably seen many times if you've played Arena at all. It's the classical, you left a lane open to your ship and I'm going to rush it right now move. And it's generally a good move. Never underestimate the power of rushing the ship. I have sort of a general rule to determine if it's a good idea, and that is if you can reach the ship and get a double attack off before you're killed, then it's worth it. But if you can only reach the ship and do one attack, then it's not worth it. That'll be 2 damage in exchange for 2 damage, and you've given your opponent's champions some ether from attacking your champion. So that's generally not worth it. In this case, it looks like he's able to get to my ship and he'll be able to get off a double attack on his next turn. However, that's only if you don't calculate with Luna's ultimate here. This is a good example of how powerful she is now. She can reliably use her ultimate to engage and then attack for 5 damage, and with Butcher's 2 damage, that's enough to take Aurora out. This is a very easy mistake to make, but in this case it ends up costing Drtinoha quite dearly.
Lady Aurora.
This is a mistake on my part, and quite a silly one really. At this point I've already determined that I'm going to be using Luna's ultimate to help me kill off Aurora before she can attack my ship, so I really shouldn't be fielding my champions within the area of effect of that ultimate. If I'd been a bit smarter, I would have fielded Aurora on the health square just below. I think this move is an attempt to remove my Butcher from his Aurora, but as you can see it doesn't quite do it. Butcher still kills Aurora, and now his Corporal isn't in a very good position. Now, here is something I don't see too often. It's the bait and switch shell. Bait and switch is undeniably a good shell, but it's very situational and it's very difficult to set up and sort of wrap your head around. But in this case, I'd say Drtinoha makes very good use of it. He gets his corporal out of the way of certain death, and he moves my Luna to a spot where she doesn't have any exceptionally good moves. And this is when you see me break my own rule, because I move down and attack the ship, even though that's a guaranteed sort of knockdown from Corporal right after. So I'm sacrificing Luna, but the circumstances are a bit different here, because if I don't force his Corporal to come back, then he will kill Butcher and he'll be able to move down next to my ship, and that's a really ugly situation. Now, there aren't really any good moves for Butcher here, and at 3 health he's sort of starting to become a liability. So I use his ultimate on Sharina, not because I think it's a very effectful move, but simply to get him out of the way and allow me to respawn a new champion without taking damage from him getting killed. This is a kind of move that you should be a bit wary of doing, especially if you're down to 1 champion. You do risk finding yourself sort of overrun at your ship, unable to spawn any champions in good positions. But in this case, I judged that it wasn't too dangerous. At this point, I only need to do 1 more damage to his ship to win, and since I'm carrying an Exodus, that means I just need to get another 2 ether on my ship. Since he can't kill me without giving me that ether, my situation here is pretty good. However, in situations like these, you should also be careful, because if you lose a champion, then you might find yourself suddenly in a situation where you're not allowed to play your shells at all. It can become sort of a chain reaction, and I've both won and lost games that looked to be decided in the opposite direction, owing to a good sort of turn lockout. So you should always be careful of that. So at this point, the important thing for me is to keep my champions alive. To achieve that, spawning Martel here is a really good choice since he has 8 hit points. And this is really why I almost always have Martel in my lineup. He's just so good at playing defense. And here's a good example of why you should never ever feel safe while playing Arena. In just 2 moves, with no possible input from me to change it, I go from 8 hit points to 1. And if I hadn't had Aurora ready to use her ultimate, or alternatively my Exodus to kill one of his champions, this could actually have been a lost game. I mean, this was really close, even though just a few seconds ago it was 8 points to 1 on the ship. And I also think this is a good argument in favor of not being too stingy with your shells. I, again, have seen games turn around on a dime that could have been won if the losing side hadn't been so stingy with their shells. This wraps up my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If I get a positive response, I might create a few more. Let me know in the comments or on the Steam forums or wherever you found this what you think of it, and if you have any suggestions for improvement. And finally, good luck in the arena.